Welcome back, folks, to the Path to Recovery podcast, episode 19 today, and we're going to be talking about the poison of judgment. There's a really deep concept behind the poison of judgment, but first, we have to dig in and try to understand what judgment really looks like. Now, judgment can be loosely defined as a cognitive process, or essentially your thought process, of reaching a decision based on opinions in order to draw conclusions to define someone or something. And first of all, judgment is designed to use our brain, not our heart, for decision making. Does that mean we can't use our heart? Of course we can use our heart, but it goes deeper than that. It's about recognizing when we use our brain or our heart that makes the difference. Why do we believe we need to judge someone or something? Do we need to justify our emotions? They did something good or bad. They're pretty or they're not. They don't know what they're talking about. Or something as simple as this traffic really sucks. Or do we need to fill a gap within our own self-esteem or self-worth by judging? They aren't as smart as me. I can do better than that. They're such an idiot. I wouldn't be caught dead wearing that. Are we hurting and need to make ourselves feel better? I hate how they say stuff about other people. They're trying to compensate for something by buying that expensive sports car. They're on their cell phone too much. He doesn't know how to take care of his kids. Also, we believe that there is something to be judged. Things like politics, religion, social media, sports, news. Look at how ugly that building is. Look at those pants. Who told them they could do that? So no matter what the reason is, it's one of the hardest things to stop doing, especially when we're at a point in our lives or going through a dark night of the soul. And with social media being in our face, it seems like a daunting task to try and even just minimize our judgments when these apps themselves are designed to hook you in and to allow you to judge. You know, things like this, love that, cry at this, or get mad at that. Passing judgment in social media, folks. That's what they're designed for. So putting a stop to our judgments takes an amazing amount of effort and honesty, as well as patience and a whole lot of understanding. We may have good intentions, but we need to make sure we're constantly working on it. As with everything else needed for healing, we have to commit to growing and to change. We all know how hard change is and how it seems to be so painful sometimes. But change is only painful if you choose it to be. If you're ready for it and prepared for change, it can happen more easily and less painful. If you want to change kicking and screaming all the way through, well, that's exactly up to you, and that's exactly what you're going to get. Now, commitment can make our change a whole lot easier. So how do you work on your judgments? I like to say there are like these 6 actions that we can consider and work on in order to really understand our judgments, our levels of judgment, and then how to fix it. The list is like this: recognize, accept, learn, adjust, commit, and then ask. So going through the list, I'm just going to start at the top first. Recognize. Recognize that you have judgments. Recognize how you judge or when you judge. Recognize how it affects others. Recognize your part in all of it, which means recognize how you find yourself making a comment about someone or something. Then recognize that you're most likely bringing forth a judgment. Recognize when situations are bringing you to judgment. Recognize how it affects those you're judging or those you're sharing judgment with. Think of that real simply, folks, as gossip. Recognize your part in the judgment, not just the fact that you're doing it, but why you're choosing to judge. The next part is accept. Accept that you are passing judgment. Accept that somewhere deep inside you, that you want to judge for some reason. Accept the steps necessary to stop, or at the very least minimize, your desire to judge. The next part is learn how to catch it after it happens, and learn how to catch it when it happens. And more importantly, our final goal is to learn how to catch it before it happens. You have to start somewhere, so learning how to catch it after it happens tends to be the first step towards healing from it. It's very similar to any addiction. And yes, judgment and judging is an addiction. In order to heal from an addiction, you have to learn how to catch those moments when you want to get high or drink or yell or hit something. Eventually, we need to catch it before it happens to prevent any of those things from occurring. The next part is to adjust. Adjust how you react to your moments of judgment. Adjust what you believe about your judgments. Make sure it's in line with your faith and desires to be healthy and happy. Adjust what you think about when you pass judgments. Dig deep to find the reasons behind you even thinking that there is a need for judging something or someone. Adjust how you feel when you pass judgment or hear someone else judging. We need to have a balance in our emotions in order to properly assess what's happening around us. How did you feel when a judgment was made either by you or someone else? Again, think of this in the same way that you would react to gossip, hearing it or spreading it. Adjust your words when you recognize you're passing judgment. A simple task such as apologizing to anyone, including yourself, when you find you're judging, even if it isn't about them. It's like apologizing for spreading gossip. Adjust your actions before, during, or after you've judged. How do you behave? How do you behave before you judge? What was happening before you passed judgment? What happened during it? What were your actions during the judgment? And then what actions did you take after? You have to understand that your actions are a derivative of your belief system and your thoughts. So the next part is commit. Commit to this change in your lifestyle, because that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be changing your lifestyle because you're going to be freeing yourself from the chains that bind you to judgment. If you desire change, the only way it can happen is if you commit with proper intentions to changing. No surrendering, no giving up. It's going to be hard work. There's going to be a requirement for dedication and perseverance. Step up, lock it in, and do it. Now the last piece is called ask. Ask for help. Who can help me? It's real simple. Who do you trust to help you through this kind of a process? Have you found a program that helps you? How about family? Can they help you? Do you trust them, or are they part of the process of your judgments? That might make it difficult. How about friends or coworkers? Now, I would highly suggest looking for spiritual leaders, priests, rabbis, spiritual centers, anything. For me, folks, truthfully, it's asking God. In my past, before I found my healing path, I didn't have anyone to help me, so I didn't change. It wasn't until I was in a program for my addiction recovery that I began to see my truth. I knew that I couldn't do it all alone. I knew it. I was fighting it tooth and nail, and when I got into the program, I realized clearly that I couldn't accomplish my goals all by myself. It was then that my heart began bringing God back into my life. Now I know that God would always guide me in the right way, and all I had to do was to commit to asking for the guidance I needed. It's real simple. Just ask someone for help. So here's a common question that's asked by people in the healing path. What's the difference between judgment and discernment? Here's a good overview. First, they're very similar if you look them up in a dictionary. However, they feel different when they're applied in life. Discernment tends to be a process of evaluating something to know if it's safe or not. Here's an example. Let's say you're in a bank and someone comes in with a mask and it looks out of place. Are you going to assess the situation for your safety and do everything in your power to remain safe because it appears that they may be about to rob the place? Or are you going to judge them for being a criminal? In this situation, discernment provided you with safety. Does that mean discernment keeps you safe? No, not really. It doesn't mean that. It just means that for that particular moment, you didn't judge something. You just assessed a situation and ensured your thoughts and actions kept you safe. Here's another example, and this one may be a bit difficult for you to hear, but still, I'm trying to get you to see the point that I'm trying to make. Let's say you read in the newspaper or online that the local police have added the address of a pedophile to your neighborhood. Now, as soon as I said that, I can say with confidence that you might have just jumped directly into judgment. It's understandable, but that is exactly why we're working on this. So let's go back to this scenario. You read in a newspaper online that the local police have allowed a pedophile to live in your neighborhood, but they put their address out there for the public to be aware. You have no kids, but your neighbors do. You decide to go over to your neighbor's house and talk to them about this new resident. Are you passing judgment or are you discerning? Well, the truth is, folks, that is up to you and your definition of what discernment means to you. So from your heart, is it important for you to share that information? Did your heart tell you that you needed to go and tell your neighbors? Or was it you passing judgment on an individual that is classified as a pedophile? From your heart, is it fair to the person who has spent time in jail and rehabilitation for whatever crime they've committed, only to have their new neighbors shun them for what they did and quite possibly make their lives miserable? From your heart, was that your action by talking to your neighbors? From your heart, can you find the reason you were even reading whatever it was you were reading in order to get that information in the first place and to discern your own actions moving forward? We tend to use our brains more often than our hearts, especially when it comes to tricky moments, stressful moments, uncomfortable moments. We'll go back to what we know, what we've learned, and what's been ingrained in our brains. As you can tell, there's so much gray area involved with judging or discerning. But as with any healing, we need to dig deep within our hearts to find the truth. So how do you know when you're judging versus discerning? As I mentioned before, it's more of a knowing that you're following your heart in the matter. Just like that last example, if you can walk through a situation like that and become safe and comfortable having a neighbor with a past live in your neighborhood, then you know your answer. Remember, folks, we all have a past, and some of our own actions may be seen exactly the same way as how some people might see a pedophile. I know that seems like a stretch, but understand fully that you're not everyone else, and what you believe is not always what other people believe. What you feel is not what other people might feel. So some people might see us just as bad or as ugly as a pedophile. So where do you start from? Ask yourself one simple question. Why did I listen to this podcast? Deep within you, something came out and said this might help. So what I tell everybody is start from the recognition that you desire change. Start listening to this cast over again. Bring it back to where I started talking about the first stage of recognition. Try to find your patterns when it comes to judging, when you judge. What are the patterns that get you to judge? What are the patterns after you judge? What is it that you do? What is it that you think before, during, and after judgment or being judged? Once you see the truth behind your patterns, you can then begin the other steps. And as with everything new, don't try to do too much too soon. Remember, it's one step at a time. Let's figure out how to recognize the issues, how to recognize the solutions, and how to recognize how we can change in order to achieve it. Let's not worry about the other steps yet. Let's just start at the beginning, which is the recognition. Folks, thank you all for listening in. I greatly appreciate your time. I hope this brings a little bit more clarity to you, and feel free again to listen to it again and rewind it. Get back to those little pieces and then kind of focus on those steps that we need in order to get ourselves to be more clear with what a judgment is versus a discernment, and why we need either of them or neither of them. So thank you again, folks. God bless you all, and I hope to hear from you next time. Thank you again for listening in today, folks. Your time and energy is greatly appreciated. Please feel free to download these episodes, favorite them, share them, and even visit my YouTube channel, Yava-Coco Productions, for all the podcast playlists and for some insanely cool videos of my hiking adventures that I do in Sedona. That all helps me to continue to bring you more exciting podcasts and videos, both for healing, spirituality, as well as just kind of amazing videos of Sedona, Arizona. For those of you wanting to dig in a little deeper, maybe you're struggling with some inner issues, or you're in a recovery path from an addiction, or just looking for inspirational discussions about healing, check out all of my podcasts on your favorite podcast players. Titles like Path to Recovery Podcast, Cognitive Awareness with a Touch of God Podcast, Bear Clan's Hiking Sedona Podcast, and yes, I even have one called Star Wars, The Bear Awakens Podcast. We are here to help you, and what we're trying to do is offer you things that can help you for free. Plus, there's entertainment involved with a lot of these anyway. So thank you again, folks. God bless you, and I hope to see you on the rocks.